Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer, and I always feel the need to reiterate that this is not my home. This is just where I'm staying while I'm working in Chautauqua.
It looks really lovely, Jonathan. You move around this.
It's a lot of like doilies and yellows and blues. It's not really my jam, but okay.
Professor housing. You know, it's quaint and it's kind of cute in its own way. So yes. Well, this and now. We're going to be discussing everything going on in the figure skating world at this point in the year. But Jonathan, I think that this is like a quaint little house. It reminds me of Ithaca in a way. I don't know.
Doilies and stuff.
It reminds me of some of the homes we used to like people would rent in college, you know, for off
That's
campus.
very much the vibe. Very
or
much.
like if you knew people that invited you over, like that lived in the town. So yeah.
Yep.
I like it. It has like a nice rustic vibe.
Country feel. Yeah.
You know what, Jonathan? We're not all in a brownstone, you know, in gentrified Harlem. Okay.
But shouldn't we be?
I don't know. Although I did meet some people from Rochester that were at the Krigor adult camp yesterday. So I have skated more in 24 hours than like ever. And there's this Anne-Marie Donahue I think she's like the skating equivalent to that person that makes you drink too much at a party. You know, that person that's always like peddling shots and giving you one.
An enabler,
right?
Yeah.
So she's like, you know, like I skate, you know, and not being a spring chicken anymore. You know, like you need to space out, stretch, rest, recovery, especially I'm working on a lot of posture stuff. So, you know, I skate kind of intensely during a lesson. Like
I believe you.
There's not a lot of there's not a lot of downtime happening. Okay. So we are like moving along and so I skated and then there was like the skating version of a happy hour, like where everyone was like just like starting the camp on Friday night. So people that got there early. So I skated like another hour and was playing around and I was like, oh, I'm tired. And then I woke up and I usually have my morning in upstate New York on Saturday. So I went up there and then went to the camp and I was like, maybe I'll do like a session. I did like 3 more hours. So I realized I was pretty spent by the end of it. But,
may have overdone it. Yeah.
I learned my first pattern dance and loved it. So awful. Like the Dutch waltz, they play like carousel music. Like it sounds like you're at a merry-go-round, like with your nephews, you know, you're like, oh my God, what is this hell?
Yeah.
Like again and again, but it was super
like a horror movie in some ways. Yeah.
But it made me think because Igor made this point that it's a lot easier and like more fun to skate when you're not worrying about jumps or spins and you're just doing the pattern. Like it is like so easy in a sense. Not that what they're doing is easy because his dance gets progressively harder. He said like it gets harder, you know, and that's where the complexity comes in. But to just do these like very simple steps. And it made me think that it's a mental thing more than anything, right? To be how you skate. And then you kind of realize like when you watch 6-0 versus IJS, that's like a mental thing of why people are skating at a different speed and how they're moving because they have so much more to focus on that you just become, and that's like what's missing in skating. It's just that freedom. So I don't know, it was just like very interesting to realize like that this shift is completely mental, right?
Yeah.
Like you are
and even in some of the performances where we feel we lose the face of the skater, it is one of concentration. They're looking down, they're sort of narrowing their focus, and I don't envy the task, but I think the great ones somehow are able to maintain all that focus and yet emote, which is impossible, I would think. Yeah.
I would just say my favorite piece of skating this week that we're going to discuss is a short 1-minute clip of Shoma Uno's short program for this year. I mean, he and Stéphane Lamiel have really developed their own style that kind of seems like it builds off of what each other is good at. You see some of Shoma in there, you see some of Stéphane. It was only a minute of him, you know, rehearsing while he was at the ice, but I thought this is good. This is interesting for him because I don't know how to describe it, but he's like kind of the male version of a grand dame in skating, for better or worse, because like I don't see him getting more quads at this point in his career.
Yeah,
right?
I think he's got the arsenal he's going to have. Yeah.
And who knows how many years he has left, but he is the best in the world at what he does right now, right? And this is completely different. It's a different kind of skating than what either Yuzu or Nathan did. And, you know, they were going for quad lutzes, right? This is a different kind of skating, but I think it's I tend to like it. Like it's more complete. It has more of an artistic point of view. If you could, give him some better jump landings, a little better camel spin, and maybe not do the quad flip, it would be like perfection. Like.
And it's just because we even saw the duet program he was doing at the Ice, where Shoma did a duo sort of program with Nathan Chen. And what you notice about Shoma so much is how in his hips he is. Like his center of gravity is so low and it's so centered and all these things. And the program looked lovely. And I have to think, like, having the choreographer that is also your coach and knowing your strengths in and out, knowing how to push you artistically and being able to work with you every day, I think just makes all the difference in the world, as opposed to, again, someone kind of meeting you, trying to get to know you really quick, not knowing your strengths or weaknesses, trying to put it together and then sending you on your way. I think it's just
to compare Shoma and Nathan, because in some respects, Nathan has better deportment in certain things, but you get Shoma's lower center of gravity.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think more muscular in the legs, just like in his build, more like a gymnast. And it gets him those really great deep knees, deep skating edges. And Nathan floats a little bit more over the ice, which is, they're both wonderful. It's just different, right? Yeah. And Yuzu has his own strength of his own, kind of combination of what they have. But it's just interesting to watch like some of the best in the world at it. I think Shoma in the skating and the performance is probably stronger than Nathan, but Nathan has that ability.
It's more my taste anyway. Yeah.
So just interesting and nice to see Nathan skating. And I saw that Ilya Malinin and June were playing around, and then I think Adam was doing backflips over. But it's interesting to see like the top men in the world kind of having fun together on the ice in the summer, because we see them and they're so focused, but they do it. I think it benefits them all as performers to do all of these shows. Like, I think that's the way Ilya is going to get better at this point, is just keep throwing him out in front of an audience, right?
Agreed.
If you're competitive and you see, oh, that person is so good at connecting to the audience, you're going to want to get better, right? And it behooves you to get the crowd on your side so you get invited back. So
again, I think only experience can help cultivate that.
Yeah.
And so the more time in front of big crowds, the better. Yeah.
I mean, I think Tom Collins used to say how much the skaters would benefit when they got on Champions on Ice just from performing in front of a crowd every single night. I think for Minsol Kwon, obviously it worked beautifully.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked it. We were supposed to see Bradie Tennell this week, but she withdrew from Skate Detroit. And I have to say, I think it was really smart that she did. We saw a clip of her free skate on Instagram that looked lovely. From of it. It's hard to judge something from look, it's black and white, it's artistic, right? Like, it's cultivated in the best way, but it looked very mature.
Mature is the exact right word. Yeah.
And I'll be curious, because I know like Sandra Bezic worked with Lindsay Thorngren on a short program this year that we haven't seen. I know Shaylin, I think, did Lindsay's Free, but we haven't seen that. So I think we'll just see like some different kinds of skating. I don't know how much of Sandra has touched up with Lindsay, but it looked like a very interesting program, when they were working on it. So it's about that. And Julia's daughter, Skylar, has won 2 huge competitions in a row. She just won Skate Detroit, and it was tough between her and the second place skater, but they both had like phenomenal totals for novice women. So it gives us a little hope, because we're about to approach that delta of when people that were younger, lower level skaters like tapped out during COVID, right? And that's going to be a delta of a couple of years of development really in there that was really impacted. So good to see some talent, because I think, especially as we like watch the Korean selection, like the depth that they have is just so important to push each other to be better. So,
and already doing competitions.
That's, well, you know what? The US also had a competition to determine the Junior Grand Prix in Milwaukee, which was even earlier. So I don't know that we can really shade.
Okay, fair enough. And it was the juniors, yeah.
But thinking about it, okay, it's July, right? Junior Worlds is in March. That's a long time for someone like Jia Shin or Minsol Kwon to maintain and be performing. I mean, look, they're young, they have youth on their side, but this is also such an important time of development, especially for their senior careers and what happens going forward. So I don't know. And we saw Mao Shimada did like a short program a couple weeks ago that was very against type.
Hmm.
And I think Caitlin Weaver did, I think they're trying to break her out of that box early. I don't know that I loved it yet, right?
Yeah.
But I respect that they're trying to broaden her so that it's not the same, right? And it's not putting her in a box. But I have to say, I really liked Jia Shin's short program here. To me, it looked like she's the one they're spending time on. Like, this is the special one.
It was just something like light and lovely about it, and was just elegant. Like a little bit in the beginning, you still know there's room to grow with like holding certain movements out, but it gives just such like a lovely feeling during it. Her jumps looked good. And that was one of the arenas that I don't know how they do that. Like the corners were all in the dark and there was only light in the middle, but they were still doing full content and the program was just lovely.
David Wilson did the short program. It reminded me a lot of like Unicam, I thought. Just some of the movements and in a good way. It didn't look like a unit knockoff. It just looked like certain qualities or certain movements that they did. And it looks like she's stretching a bit more than she did last year, which was always one of our criticisms of her, is extending those limbs. So I'm cautiously optimistic about where
I
this
was pleased. Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, oh, good for her.
Yeah. So yeah, I was happy about that. What did you think of Minsol Kwon? So she did a Bollywood program. This is a skater who did the Cats program last year. She
with the ear headband.
I didn't love it at the beginning of the season last year, but at Worlds,
it kind of worked.
Yeah, I really was kind of horrified in the beginning. And I remember a lot of people were like, "How she's young," and you know what? Her performance won over any reservations that I had by the end of the season. I thought this was interesting that they went Bollywood. I kind of think that they did it because she has really weak extension. She really poor extension. Like the limbs are always bent and she hasn't learned that yet. So to do a program where you're like, the body, I thought made it kind of clever to hide that in a sense.
And yet somehow you still knew.
Yeah.
Something about like that, because what was interesting is she was able to sell the performance of the Cats in her short program. She was also very performance driven. And so it made sense that they gave her more of like a thematic piece or a character kind of piece. I don't know, it just kind of missed for me. It didn't have enough like razzmatazz. I don't know. And something about the arm movements, although you could tell they were trying to mask, like some things also just seemed a little like awkward to me.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that her personality will carry it. The only thing that concerns me is if you keep doing programs to hide it, do you ever improve it?
Right.
I don't know. That's tough, right? But
and the jumps perhaps a little more from the upper body instead of the lower body, as opposed to Jia, you know, just thinking as they are compared to one another. Yeah.
I'll be curious to see how they both do on the Junior Grand Prix this year. I expect them to both place well. I think we'll see the program develop, but I agree with you about Jia. To me, has more of the ingredients of that top skater, but Minsol Kwon also has like a gritty energy to her when she
knows how to perform. And of course, it's also like one of the first big outings, so maybe she will learn to sell it more as the season goes on.
Yeah. So I did like the training clip of Minkyu Seo. I thought he was really just so charming to watch. I like that.
And very elegant, just the way he moves and things like that. It was enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. And then we did see in Canada, they're having their summer competitions. They're having their next gen competition this weekend. And we saw Gabby Daleman out there.
I'm just so confused. I'm confused.
Yes. She missed her triple toe, which has always been her strong.
On the first jump. Yeah, like it fell on the first triple toe.
I thought the music was great for her.
Mhm.
The Hana Shine Bright Like a Diamond, I thought was refreshing and really great and a great choice for skating.
And then a tight double axel and a fall on the Lutz.
Yeah, I noticed that when she does the flip and the Lutz, often in competition, it looks like she hasn't done them before. And there's
Well, and that's the thing, like when we were talking to Christy Ness, it was always the matter of like, are you practicing this well and then it's not working for you in competition? Or are you going into competition really not having been doing well in the practices either? Not knowing, but it seems to me it doesn't appear that maybe this was going well in any sort of practice.
Like a technique issue. To me, like a timing issue on her flip. It's consistently, we see this every competition from her.
For several years now. Yeah,
like she's getting like lost in the air.
Yeah.
I don't know, it looks like a back to basics kind of thing. And she does have the wrap, but I don't know, it looks like the confidence is not there on that jump. So I was surprised. But okay, what did you make of the Rory Flack show? So there is a new show called Breaking.
Okay, really quick before we go to Rory, the one little clip that I loved, I think the most this week, was the one of Adam Siao Fa's.
Oh, okay.
Program.
Yes.
Obsessed. I loved everything about it. And like, I think so far of all like the preview programs we have seen, that is the one I am most excited about.
And did you know that, so he worked with Benoit. Benoit's also going to be coaching Nini. Remember the one that had that really explosive article about her mom and she was rhythmic gymnastics. And then we saw her last year at Junior Worlds and she had the really incredible spins. She's now being coached by Benoit. So this is a gift to all of us to really raise the interest level for this. She's going to be at Skate America. This is quite the pairing.
It'll be interesting, yeah.
You know, a lot of personalities.
It is, I mean, I do think the Benoit connection here is catapulting her into the spotlight in a way. And the material they were showing, mind you, would always cut before the jumping, looked rather interesting. It'll be curious to see.
Listen, she's one with a mother. She does rhythmic gymnastics. She can spin. She's got Benoit's point of view in black and white and French. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, more to come in that. Yeah. All right. So what did you think of the Rory Flack Breaking the Ice show?
So I watched the first 3 episodes. Are those all that are available so far?
Yes, the first 3 are available on WeTV and All Black.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was, you know, my brief but experience in reality TV is how much the narrative can be driven by the producers behind the scenes and how much of that like testimonial kind of footage is fed. So it always has me wondering now when I watch, like, how much is this fabricated? How much is this real? But it was a fascinating turn that at some point, like the storyline did become, is this a sketchy organization?
Yes, which I thought was horrible for the first diverse team. Like it was unfortunate that that's where the storyline became. But I also thought that it was compelling because some of the girls are naturally wonderful on camera. Like knew how to speak. They were confident. They were unique. They just had
conversational. You can tell who's just comfy in those moments.
They didn't seem like they were scripted or playing a role of someone on reality TV. They just seemed great, like ready to be there. And Rory is also a personality who is really interesting for reality TV. She was ready. She's ready for this moment. She was great. I also love that the team name is the Divine Motivational Visionaries. Like, I kind of love it. I
just wish it didn't spell out DMV. Like, everyone has such negative connotations about a DMV.
It's the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So that's very common there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's interesting. ISI is obviously not nearly as rigorously competitive as US figure skating. Apparently, maybe US figure skating passed on having a reality show about a synchro team, which again, I think is such a mistake for US figure skating, because if you do it well, it can boost your numbers. I mean, you have to think like, yes, when Dance Moms was extremely popular. Did it shine a negative light on competitive dance? Yes.
Yeah.
Did it show how talented the girls are? Yes. Did enrollment boost through the roof through competitive dance and Instagram and social media and content industry? Yes, right? So I think it's always a missed opportunity to shy away from it. I mean, what's really going to happen on a synchro team, right? Like, I don't think that there's like that much of a danger of some of the things that could happen in other disciplines, right? If you're like worried about something going the wrong way.
Right.
I thought it was interesting also, like there was a lot of talk about the economics of skating, and I wasn't sure because the parents were complaining about the cost, which cost is like a real thing in skating. But then they were talking about the dresses, and I didn't ever hear the coaches say that the dresses would be custom, just that they were getting dresses, right? And when they said that it was $400, that's not that much for a skating dress or a dance costume at like a certain level. Like, that's not that much, but I don't know what was expressed, although the one girl had the same dress from 3 years earlier or something. So, but I didn't, was that real? Was that produced? I wasn't sure. I was trying.
Yes, here's the thing also, the way some of that works is as they were bringing it up in one of the things and it became, it seemed a fed drama to me, like in order to build the suspense of would they have them on time? Would they,
Yes.
where are they? Some of that sort of stuff. It looked like I was, of course, is always interested in the substance of the training. That's what I was interested to see. And it just becomes sort of generalities of like, you gotta work harder and all this sort of stuff. And it did take more of this like dance moms, like what's the drama behind the scenes sort of take on it. And that just never interests me as much, because you even think about these confrontational calls that they were having about needing more ice time and all this sort of stuff. And obviously the camera has to be there. You have to tell the person to call them at that exact moment. So so there's always this sort of element of like amateurs doing improv.
So what did you think about the whole ice time thing? Because to me, it looked like they did need more practice, and it did look like the coaches got super defensive about the whole practice issue. And
well, because like when you think about how much a synchro team has to practice, wouldn't you think it's more than once a week?
Yeah, but again, they're
especially if they're doing
I
like,
don't want to shade ISI, but like ISI is a different amount of practice than US figure skating. Like it just is, right?
Okay.
But then thinking like, but more practice than that, you would think like 2 or 3 days a week.
Yeah, and it's interesting because then they would cut to Rory and these like testimonials being like, I need to push them harder. And I was like, they're basically asking for that. They're asking for additional rehearsal time or practice session time. And like, that's how you would get better. It was very fascinating to me. And again, the idea of telling someone they need to be better or try harder, I don't know where the information is in that.
I thought that they looked like they were doing a pretty good job with coaching, right? It's hard to know what to expect like for that level, and they really didn't show the other team, although it was so funny when they show the other team with hula hoops and the girls are like, I don't know if we can beat that.
I know, and I was like, I would have been like, hula hoops, yeah.
Funniest thing was it seemed like, were they practicing for like 2 weeks before they did that exhibition in Boston?
On weird ice in a different shape, and like
okay, so Elin Tran, Tenley Albright's daughter, the one with she's has the red hair. She has like real Miss Frizzle energy. If you meet her,
okay.
She's like very fairy godmother-ish in like the most wonderful way. She is the one that she produces outdoor shows in Boston. So she invited them to be in one of her shows there. So I mean, people do that in New York too. Like there are different shows that are like Skating Club in New York does a bunch with Ice Theater. They put different things on, throughout the city. So they invited them to one of those shows, and I think you could see Ryan Dunk when they're taking the thing. So it was just interesting to watch all of that. So I don't know. I didn't know what was real or not with the ice time. I thought that might have been a little real because it kept coming up.
Yeah.
But I thought the whole thing with the one girl and her parents all arguing, that looked more produced to me. It seemed like there was some sort of a personal relationship between
Yes.
the parents and Rory, perhaps. I wasn't entirely sure. Yeah.
Just on the outside, you're like, yes, I know exactly what's happening. And with like some of the kids that were less comfortable, you know, that like young teen that like just has like one word responses and stuff, like obviously that's like a producer's nightmare. So some of them were clearly giving like a scripted comment in their testimonials and things like that.
So I was curious because maybe I've gone down the rabbit hole a little bit of like watching some of the videos about like the behind the scenes dance moms from time to time, because I'm interested in TV production. And sometimes the producers actually set up the kids to create drama, but in a way that seems like potentially traumatizing for them. Like, there was one scene in Dance Moms where someone's headpiece fell, and like, did the producers cause that to happen in a sense, right? Like, there's certain things that they would do where they knew that this mother, Kelly, was a hot tamale who would like really get upset about costumes or choreography, and they would intentionally like
provoke her.
So like Abby will work with her daughter's last, so she'll get tense and riled up while they're sitting there, and then she's tense and riled up for the cameras. And it seems like, so that was produced, but she was really that upset.
Yeah.
And I wondered if they told the girl to wear the wrong color tights. Like, did they tell them what to wear the next day and then she got upset, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know at certain points. So I've always
you know, the timing is always so weird. Like, so you have no idea how long was that filming day at the arena when they really have to get everyone like into their area to film them and do this and do that. Like, so also I find in a lot of those situations, there's a great deal of fatigue that is already heightening the emotions and drama behind everything, because it's been like, you've been there for 12 hours, everyone's wearing a mic pack, everyone had to do a sound check, everybody, you know, we've got to get this cut, we've got to get that shot. So I find also those emotional testimonies are from someone who's exhausted and tired from the filming all day as well.
And I don't know, okay, so is the skating level high enough to be interesting without a certain level of drama, right? Like, ISI skating isn't as impressive, perhaps, as US figure skating, but it's also maybe more intriguing to see people have opportunities to go out and skate, and they're a little bit more accessible.
So
and maybe it's more normal.
Help me understand what the difference between the two organizations are. So we
But
obviously
obviously
like the massive synchro that does all the world championships, and we watch all those nationals and stuff. And this organization, what is it?
It's like more recreational, which like they've been, I think, struggling for more years, but oftentimes like it's like if you want to skate and not go crazy, you can do ISI and like have your kid skate and learn an axel and a double sow, but also take dance lessons, and like you're not fully going in from like the crazy amount of US figure. It's a really different structure. Okay. It's more fun, it's less pressure, you know, it's more recreational, I guess is the way to say it. Yeah. So yeah, they were doing that. So the skating level isn't going to be as high. But then you wonder, like, is that enough for TV? Because obviously the secret is like the girls have to get better throughout the year, right? So that's why I was kind of wondering about the TV time and all of
when
that.
It wasn't so much footage of the actual skating.
No.
You know what I mean? Like there's that element too. I was curious.
No shade, like they're not Nexus, right? Like they're not right. Like so that's interesting to me, because it's like they're gonna have to cut it to make them look amazing at the end of the year. These are ISI skaters, like they're not
right. There's a ceiling.
20 hours a week, right? So there's a ceiling there. Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I mean, like this is just like our own nerdy thing, but I mean, Rory was listed as a producer, and I don't know how involved she was with the edit, because she wasn't an executive producer. But there was a moment in time where she says, all right, everyone, let's go work on your axles. And they show a montage of skaters jumping, and half of the
doing like triple toes or something. Yeah.
And their lutzes and axles. And I was like, okay. This is.
But at the end, they threw one excellent. At the very end of that comment, I was like, oh, you got one in finally. Yeah.
But that was sloppy. That was sloppy, but kind of what you expect for TV, but when everyone kind of cringes. So yeah, I don't know.
It will be intriguing. I'm just always fascinated, like in synchro or this sort of ISI version of it. I'm curious how much individual work is being done, because like, as you see them, obviously there are some mismatches. Some people seem to really know how to extend and do stuff, some less so. It was interesting to see them in the dance classes go individually and sort of work those things. I would imagine as a team, you'd still need some sort of like solo attention.
Yeah, a lot of skaters do, especially on synchro teams. A lot of skaters take dance or they do skating skills, moves in the field, but a lot of them take their dance tests in addition to what they're doing. So that's.
But speaking of dance,
yes,
you watched Brooke and Lucas
from last week and Skate Dallas, and Lucas won. Brooke won the rhythm dance, and he won the free and overall. So it was a close competition between the two of them, but interesting to watch, and interesting to watch a guy against a girl compete. That's an interesting dynamic because there's always that sense of should they compete together or not? And there are so many debates about this going on all over the place, but
because it is such apples and oranges. Like as I was watching his free dance, which I liked more than the material I've seen him do in the past, there was something so big and open about it, but he's also a million times taller and broader, you know what I mean? So it just inevitably creates different kinds of pictures on the ice.
One thing I'll say is that he skates with complete confidence and like if you like the material or not, he is selling it completely.
It's sort of, it was reminiscent of those like late 70s guys.
He reminds me of Evan Lysacek so much. Like
okay. Yeah.
Loads when he does his twizzles and stuff like that, the way Evan would in his footwork. Whether like if you like it or not aesthetically, like he is checking every box that you are. And I think for Brooke, that's going to be hard because speed, like it's a guy against a girl. It's the same at the end of the day, right? Like it's a man against a woman, and that's tough, to do. And they're both great, but I think it's good for the discipline to kind of have them go.
Yes, of course. And Brooke's rhythm dance in particular, I think is marvelous. That was the tango one. Yeah.
That's where she gets really Jersey. Like it's the most New Jersey thing you've ever seen in your life. Yes. Yeah.
I was there for it. I thought it was absolutely amazing. That's my more favorite of the two programs.
And she's coming back. She was doing really well. She had a knee injury, which it's like tendonitis in her knee, I think. They weren't sure if she had they thought it was her kneecap or something. So she was kind of shut down for a while and lost some momentum. And while she was injured, Lucas scored like a 108 in Florida, which was maybe a little of a higher scoring competition, but he scored very high in Dallas, which had like the top US dance judges, like Bob Horan, who was the judge that was leading the Marilyn Charlie effort to win gold, was there. He was old school power broker with like Sean Rettstad and Linda Lee, the judge, and all of those names were there at that competition in Dallas. So that is really tight. And it was interesting. We did, Jeffrey Chen competed in junior. His old partner, Kerry Wolfkinson, won in senior. So interesting to see. The actual competitors weren't that great. It was a lot of those, penultimate group skaters.
Right.
But I did hear that in monitoring, Zingis and Kolesnik looked fantastic.
Well, I so enjoyed them last season. Like, I'm very excited to follow them this season.
And I think the US needs them because last year we were really slipping in dance.
Yeah.
Like for the first time, the US hasn't had that team that's climbing, because we saw Green and Parsons like stall out. Who knows how long Hawaii and Baker have? Are they going to compete up to the level they did before? What's happening, right? We don't know. And Zingis and Kolesnik are really moving up, and we haven't seen Carrera and Ponomarenko really take those steps forward. So I'm curious what can happen.
I mean, I would have had him higher at nationals personally.
Well, apparently they look very, very strong, and
Good.
you know, those judges know Igor for a long time, so he knows what they want. So that's also intriguing. I think they have the political power behind them and that kind of coaching. So I heard that she is looking really strong because, you know, last year she had switched from singles to dance, and then now this is longer in dance for her, and she's really.
And she's the one that looks. She emotes like she's been ice dancing the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, we're getting ready for Lake Placid, and Diana and Gleb are supposed to compete there for Georgia. So that'll be interesting to see them as well, because we haven't seen them compete in a long time, or even skate since the winter. So that will really kind of spice things up. You know, like, and gymnastics, I'm still working on that as the blade turns. I've had a really busy work week, but gymnastics is tentatively going to allow Russians and Belarusians back as neutrals on January 1st, 2024. And they wouldn't necessarily be able to qualify for like Olympic spots, but some of this stuff with the war is really shifting. And curious to see what will happen, you know, with skating, because the IOC is talking about it again in October, about what they want to do about the ban for everyone. And it seems like Thomas Bach has an incentive to allow Russia back with his ties to Putin. And quietly, it seems like they're trying to get them back into international sports in, you know, like for January or something like that, which would allow figure skating to allow them back in as well. So I would just be.
But so what does the gymnastics announcement mean? Is that up until that point, they are not allowed?
Correct.
So has gymnastics sort of like superseded the IOC by saying they can't even qualify for this?
I don't think that the Gymnastics Federation did anything that the IOC isn't prepared to do. Right. Okay. I think you can see from the Thomas Bach rhetoric that he wants to let the Russians and the Belarusians.
But like, for instance, in this example, if like the IOC says, no, we are going to let them compete as neutrals, does the Gymnastics Federation have to figure something out so they can qualify before then?
No. I mean, listen, the rules are the rules. And
so the gymnastics is decided in that discipline, there will be no Russian entry.
Most likely no, unless there's some like last minute things, because it's so complicated how gymnasts qualify to the Olympics now with these other competitions, but they certainly will not have a full team. And it, you know, depends on whether or not Putin allows the Russians to compete under the rules of neutrality, which will get way more complicated as this moves forward, because that.
Yeah, it's one thing to just agree to that, but to sort of qualify what counts as neutral is going to be rather complex. Yeah.
And are you allowed to do that within Russia? Like, what do they have to declare? Right. So, but Thomas Bach is, you know, with his rhetoric, you can tell he's been pushing towards this, but then they didn't allow it. And, you know, the ISU postponed that conversation until October. And if the IOC is having it in October, you start to see how things could align. The Valieva case takes place at the end of September. So all of this stuff is going to start happening like really, really quickly. Together. And so
it's gonna get messy.
It's gonna get messy. I have to say, I'm excited to see Diana and Gleb compete, in the sense of it's going to make things more interesting, right? And where do they fit in? And that's another top team, just because we were low on stars last year in skating. But then you have the whole ethical question about should they be able to or not, and that's an entirely different conversation. But
speaking of stars, we watched that Mao documentary, and I forgot how much I missed her.
Yes. She just has lovely energy, like lovely.
Yeah, and she was always very elegant, and she was doing, you know, some homage programs to former things she has done, but then she was doing, I mean, she did like quasi paired skating, she did a double loop. We probably would have sent her to Worlds if she represented the US. Like, she was doing some nice pair spin moments. But the way she was moving her upper body in that Scheherazade, I think she moves better now than she ever has. Yeah. Like it was the Scheherazade in particular. I was like, go ahead on.
And you know, she's working to get her triple axel back. She's been training that, and It's interesting. She has a tour of more of a company of skaters rather than stars, and we don't hear about Mao as much. So it's nice to see her and see that.
And it did seem more of a cohesive, like, company sort of program. The group numbers were very slick. They were very artsy. They were. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like seeing her, and except because we haven't heard as much from her in the last couple of years. And we missed. So I keep thinking though, if Yoona Kim gets that gold medal, think of what it would do for Korean skating. If like, because right now they have the depth backing this up. And I don't, like, if Sotnikova opened her mouth about those scratches on the sample, what if that?
Because what's the status with that? Didn't she come out and be like, just kidding? Didn't she have to walk it back already?
Oh, I never failed the drug test. Well, of course you didn't.
Right.
They swapped out your urine so that you wouldn't fail the test. Like,
right. Hello. Are you not sort of following the logic here?
Yeah. I mean, that's, and now there is a Korean president of the ISU. When this was swept under the rug before, Lekurnik was the highest ranking member of figure skating in Russian. So just a really interesting thing that could happen. I mean, imagine if Yoona Kim got awarded that gold medal. I've always had this like feeling, and I've been listening to some things, and this is why I'm working on SBA turns, but everyone acts like all of these things are so independent, like the IOC, the CAS, or they're supposed to be, right? But if you listen to interviews with Brian Fogel, who was, behind the director of Icarus, he talks about how in bed the organizations are each other. WADA is 50% funded by the IOC. They don't have the autonomy to really punish people. They can make recommendations, and it comes down to the IOC and the governing bodies and backroom deals. And you start to just wonder, like, okay, in gymnastics, when there was a lot of evidence about the teams being underage in 2008, there were a lot of people there were Chinese government registries that used to have access, and people posted things from them on the internet that showed the birth dates of several of the gymnasts that were on the team, 3 of them. They later, that was under investigation. They won the team gold medal. And the internet has like really revised history about, like, it's considered really racist to discuss that the team was underage because, well, traditionally, age falsification has been a huge issue in gymnastics for a long time, but only the Asian countries have really been punished for it. Some of that has to do with the power brokers, because Russia is so powerful, and Romania had people that were in the FIG in gymnastics. So they also had a lot of age falsification, but were never punished for it. So there have been many gymnasts throughout history that had fake ages, but oftentimes the Asian countries have gotten caught, but in some cases they've been sloppier in terms of some of their paperwork, where the same person had 3 different birth dates at different competitions. So there's that. But when that happened in 2008, they were like, the internet is not a document, and we're just going to look at their passports. Well, again, the passport was falsified. So if the passport is falsified or a secondary one is produced by the government, you're just going to take that, right? It was a very shoddy investigation, in my opinion, right? But at the same time, other people from the year 2000 came out and said, oh, we were underage too. So what they wound up doing is they took the bronze medal away from 2000 and gave it to the US at the same time that 2008 gold medal was being in question. And they said, oh no, that's fine. But they did take it away from the bronze medal, right? And the timing wasn't exact, like it wasn't decided on the same day. But you start to think like, okay, whatever happens with Valieva, they're going to backdate her ban, right? It's going to not be satisfactory to people in some way. They're going for 4 years. CAS often halves punishments. So you think, let's say she winds up with 2 years suspension, right? It would be 2 years. It's going to be 2 years from December 25th. So if they give 2 years from December 25th, by the time that she would even get back into competition, it would be before January 1st of this year. And let's say that skating let them back in on January 1st, she would be eligible to go.
Right.
And you start to wonder, like, okay, are they going to take, and if they're going to let her back in and let Russia back in, they're going to have to give something up, right? Are they going to give up the team gold medal? Probably, right? But if they're going to let all of Russia back in, and if Valieva is allowed back, they're going to have to give something up for that. I could see Sotnikova losing her gold medal and Kamila getting the gold medal for that, and then see the team get their medal. And that way it's like enough happens. Everybody's.
Oh, that would mean Gracie would get an Olympic bronze.
Yes.
Okay.
Think of the timing of that. And Gracie's book would be coming out right as she got that bronze medal. That would be an amazing talking point to sell that book. And then think about how good it would be for skating, because whether you think that she should be competing or not, think about, I would not look away if Adelina were competing at Worlds as Russia's entry, or if she were trying to make Worlds. Think of like that would be just incredible, right? Like that that's like a Tanya Harding car wreck, can't look away, need to look at this, right?
Okay.
Stranger things have happened. That's all I'm saying. You know?
Because I mean, obviously, the Korean Federation opened up something at the time, but it was about the judging, not about the testing. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yikes.
What do you think?
I mean, I kind of love like a switch up. Like, I mean, also if they eradicate Valieva's results after that test, that shifts up Europeans. Lena gets her bronze, you know, if it goes back and Gracie gets bumped up and gets a bronze, Carolina with a silver. I mean, I don't know. These are certain skaters in those moments you wanted to see be rewarded.
If Kamila were to get a gold medal, I think that they should have an ice show in her honor where she gets it placed around her neck, and you could have like the next generation of Koreans performing. I'd market the shit out of it. You know,
I mean, what a weird feeling if you're Kim Yuna. Do you know what
whatever?
I mean?
It would be the ultimate vindication. Okay, 10 years later,
she Katarina Vided it. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it would be like, on one hand, it feels like nothing, but on the other hand, I think it would be like sweet vindication. I know when the gymnastics got the bronze medals, it felt like nothing, but to get a gold medal, and with the amount of attention and love that she has from the Korean public, I think that they could make that very special.
Well, and like you're saying now, with two world silver medalists from last year, I mean, like the momentum for skating is quite tremendous in Korea. This would be huge.
It could be like an opening ceremony on ice, right? Where at the end, the torch is lit at the end, Kim Yuna gets her gold medal, right? We all perform. Sandra and David Wilson can produce the whole thing. It'll be great. Okay, this is what needs to happen, okay? Yeah.
I mean, what's the status? Are they supposed to formally investigate again, or like?
They're pushing, you know, the Korean Olympic Committee has filed something. So who knows? I mean, Thomas Bach is in charge of this, but think of all the different pressure that is being exerted. That's why people need to talk about it, because it's only going to happen if people push the issue.
Right.
So, yeah.
Buckle up.
Buckle up, you know. I mean, that movie Icarus really moved the needle in terms of what happened with Russia. So, yeah, I don't know. It's, Oh, man. Holding it to look sexy, everyone. I know.